Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. So this evening we have a special guest. We have Stephen Gardner from the Stephen Gardner Show. Thanks for coming in and interviewing with me this evening, Stephen. How you doing?
Oh, Ray, good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
And by the way, I'll just let the cat out of the bag. Stephen is one of my good friends. We mostly agree on most topics, but again, I think this particular interview is going to be special because I'm going to challenge some of the news he's been reporting as well as me and the logic there behind it. So, I used to panic about the economy, Stephen. I won't say panic. I was highly concerned about it because every time CNN would flash recession or you'll watch the Dow drop by 400 points, I started thinking, really go over my portfolio and what should I do? But I'm not an impatient investor. And because headlines are, really noisy, when we do our headlines on our particular platforms, we're talking about the real economy. And if I had to pick one metric to tell me that we were in the clear when it comes to inflation, and it's not about the GDP, what would you say would be that one metric for you? Would it be unemployment? Would it be, wage growth or the decrease of wages? What would your take on that be?
So for me, you have a couple of things. You have Wall Street. You also have Main Street. Now, a lot of people believe that Wall Street is the economy. It's not. It's where wealthy people park their money while they wait for businesses to release new data about how well or how poor they're performing under a specific CEO and team. So I don't get too hung up. The news made a big deal about, Trump is going to crash the economy. You had Jim Cramer of Mad Money screaming, he's bald, but, pulling his hair out, saying, we're going to have another Black Monday. We're going to see a 25% drop in the stock market. Things went down, I think at their low, about 6%. They've now come back up, and the media is not covering that. They keep talking about Wall Street as if it has dropped and gone to hell in a handbasket. It's back, and it's going to continue to go up. I mean, I just bought Tesla a few days ago. It's already up 15%.
Whoa, Stephen, I have to slow you down, brother. Did you say you just bought Tesla? Now, someone may come into your stock portfolio and vandalize it.
Hey, you know what? I think Elon Musk has done a great job. I think he deserves a medal. This guy, he lost billions and billions of dollars in value. Tesla stock was down like 70%. I knew that it would come back once he left Doge. So Elon's done great. It's the Republicans in Congress that I think are failing the American people because they need to get going. President Trump, in my opinion, he's doing a great job, but they're not codifying or bringing into law the things that he's changing. Therefore, they can just be reversed if we end up losing in 2026 or 2028. So they've got to start putting some of this stuff into action. But I'm not at all unhappy with what's going on there. But just to get back, so Wall Street takes this small hit, and you've got the Democrats saying Donald Trump is no longer the president of the people. He's screwing over the American people. How? Prices have come down. Interest rates have come down. Trillions of dollars pouring in private investment. There's going to be hundreds of thousands of good paying jobs that are coming in. 150 countries are now trying to negotiate. How do we get access to that American wallet? You've got China just in the last 24 hours saying, we're ready to strike a deal. They're going to lower the tariffs on each other. The United Kingdom just wrapped up. So when I look at it, I just look at what is the job situation and do people have money to go out and spend? Now, life has gotten expensive because of Biden, but wages will start to catch back up. That was one of the first things that Trump was, given credit for in his first term, was for the average American, wages went up. And I believe that will happen again. Under Biden, costs went up. And I think now wages are going to have to catch up with cost. So that's what I look at. I just look at, are the majority of people able to get and hold a job And are they having enough money to buy their groceries and pay their bills? Those are the things I look at.
Well, I didn't hear anything untrue, but I guess in those regards, a lot of the things that you stated, I just, if you don't mind, not a test of your logic, but just to, I guess, solidify it. Because in some regards, I know that you argue Democrats are weaponizing U.S. foreign aid to essentially mind control the world. And I guess my question would be, what's the single most alarming example of aid being diverted for political ends, and how do you trace the money trail?
So, number one, I would love for them to start tracing the money trail. They're not doing a very good job of that, but I'll give you an example. So Elon Musk and the geniuses on the Doge team, they pull back the curtain on USAID, and we realize that there's a lot of politicians' family members that have these massive NGOs, non-government organizations, that are doing anything from getting food and water to Africa, although now we're finding out that was a scam, to bringing illegal immigrants into the country. We're finding out that was a scam, to Sesame Street in Iraq, helping the European Union, like billions and billions of dollars of things that don't actually help the American people. They don't make the dollar stronger. They don't do anything other than enrich
I totally
the people
agree.
that live in Washington, D.C. So for me, pulling back that curtain, they've exposed just how much corruption and money laundering there is. Now we need arrests. That's where my beef is. I want to see some people go to jail.
So you stated about Doge, and I always wanted to run this across you because I want to know your thoughts on Elon Musk quitting Doge essentially, and only cutting what they reported $160 billion from the deficit, while a lot of critics, mostly Democrats, claim that President Trump has increased the deficit by $200 billion. Because Elon Musk, I mean, he stepped down from Doge. They were, attacking his manufacturing plants, his leasing dealerships where he was selling these vehicles. And I heard that there were reports from the board of directors telling him to come back, or basically they're going to, vote him out, so to speak. What are your thoughts on that?
So you've heard the term, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? Like
I have.
Elon Musk, I mean, these guys had hound dogs. They were leading them right to the corruption. And the Republicans, they haven't done anything about it, right? I'll give you an example. So we now know that at least 7 million people were illegally stealing money every single month from Social Security. Those checks were being cashed by somebody. Why aren't we knocking on the door and saying, hey, you've been receiving $1,600 from Social Security for the last 16 months. Prove that it's you or go to jail. Like, why aren't we doing that?
And wasn't some of those people not even alive?
A lot of those people aren't even alive. There was like 20 million people over the age of 115. I mean, it's like, it's insane. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And I did a video about this. Elon Musk is pissed, I think was the name of the video title, something like that. So basically, Doge, they've been working 20-hour days, 7 days a week. The richest man on planet Earth was literally sleeping on the floor in his office in Washington, D.C. for free, while his own companies were falling apart for the American people. And what did the Republicans do? They passed a bill where they actually spent more money. So it kind of like wiped it out. Now, in their defense, a lot of that was already in place from when Biden was in office. So they're just basically, think about like an anaconda has swallowed a giant rabbit. There's that bolus of food. It's got to work its way through the system. But going forward, if they keep doing that, then we know that they're hypocrites and liars, right? And we don't want them to be known as hypocrites and liars. We want them to be known as doing good for the American people. I would like Democrats to be known as doing good for the American people, right? So there's brokenness in both parties. That's why I consider myself a libertarian who happens to vote conservative, right? So I think that more is going to come out.
What does that actually mean? I'm curious about when people say they're libertarian. Can you give us a quick breakdown of what that may be, or what
Yeah,
that is, rather?
Yeah, so libertarians are very much against taxation. We believe that it is theft. We're against government intervention in businesses, in our lives, in our family, in our religion. We're very much against war. We're against using the military as the negotiating tool versus diplomacy. So those are just a few things. Like I say on my show all the time, like think about this. Republicans say, we want to lower your taxes and we're going to shrink government so that we don't need as much money. And Democrats say the country's so broke, we are forced to raise taxes. But then you find out how stupidly they've been spending our money. So I'm going to go with the party that's going to lower my taxes. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we fought a war to avoid taxation, and now we're being taxed into the ground. So I'm very much against being overtaxed. There's nothing patriotic about overpaying on your taxes. Now, I know that we have to have taxes. Nobody's going to build a bridge or repair their streets. We've got to have that. But government efficiency, running a small government, I'm all for that. Government being out of my life, I'm all for that. Being out of all of these foreign wars, I'm all for all of that. So that's what I say. When I say I'm a libertarian, I'm very anti-government that way. But at the same time, I know there has to be a government. Some things will never get fixed if there isn't a big government smashing a hammer down on that. So,
well, let me ask you this then, because when it comes to the different parties and their legislation that they've passed over the course of time, are there any Democratic legislation that you have agreed with or that you believe benefits Americans versus Republicans?
Yeah, I would say look at unions, for example. A lot of us, we enjoy a 5-day work week. Not everybody. Some people have multiple jobs and part-time jobs and stuff. But I would say a vast majority of Americans that make over $75,000 a year, they work a 5-day work week. That's very uncommon. In other parts of the world, they work 7 days a week. So the Democrats valuing, we got to get child labor out of the workforce. We can't work our workers to death. They should have some kind of benefits. Those are things that started to be built in, but that's the party of like JFK, not the party of Joseph Robinette Biden, where they believe that government is the answer versus God or your own common sense or just working for the benefit of your community. So those are a few things. The Democrats used to be anti-war, and it was the Republicans that always wanted to go to war. Well, you start digging in and you realize their donors are what drive what these politicians do, right? So right now, social media has dug in deep to the Democrat Party. That's why we see censorship. We see that Big Pharma has dug deep into the Democrat Party. That's why you see them trying to mandate drugs and raise drug prices and things like that. And now you see the Democrat Party, they're fighting war for
before
Ukraine.
you move on, can you speak about, because you said something about prescription drugs, and I do apologize for cutting you off there. You was on a really good roll, but I don't want to let this moment pass. Trump did sign an executive order or some sort of legislation that is going to lower prescription drugs. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. Okay. So just going back, Ray, to your question, and then I'll blend this all together. For decades, the Democrats have run on a couple of big platforms. We'll allow you to abort your babies. We are going to get you fair wages, and we're going to lower prescription drug prices. Well, the abortion thing, let's just put that to the side. The higher wages, how can you say you're going to get me higher wages when you flood the country with 21 million illegal immigrants that are willing to work for less than the American people? They're willing to shack up 2, 3, 4 families in a house in order to have their lower bills so that they can accept lower work. Yes, I know that immigrants do work that a lot of Americans don't. I'm grateful for that. But the Democrats, they run on, we're going to raise your wages. The big one is we're going to lower prescription drug prices. They've been saying this for decades. Bernie Sanders ran for president twice on that platform. AOC has run on that. Obama talked about that. Biden talked about that. None of them did that. So what does Donald Trump say? You know what? I've got this big, beautiful marker. I'm going to go ahead and sign an executive order. But he comes about it differently. He doesn't say, hey, I'm a tyrannical government that, like communism, is going to force you to lower your prices or force you into charging a specific dollar amount. Instead, he says, hey, we have lots of empirical data proving that you are overcharging the American people while selling that same drug to other countries for pennies on the dollar. I'll give you an example. Trump had a very funny skit today from the Oval Office. He said, I have a big, rich, fat friend, very rich, very fat. He calls me from England and he says, President, what the heck? There's a $1,300 weight loss shot in America for $88 in England. Why am I being ripped off? On my show, I've shown people there's drugs where they're literally charging Medicare $2,500 for a drug that if you didn't have insurance and you paid cash would be $200, or a $200 drug that costs $12.
They're charging the government more.
Yeah, so Trump is just going to come in and he's saying, listen, here's how we're going to do it. Not through tyranny, not through communism, not through government abuse, but by saying we have evidence that you're ripping off the American people. We think that's illegal. We're going to say we have a preferred nation. If that preferred nation is paying $60 and America's paying $600, it's now illegal to charge more. So they've either got to force these other countries to pay more or they've got to lower the price. My guess is they're going to do a little bit of both, but who benefits from that? The American people. So that's where I think the advantage is. With everything that's happening in the U.S. economy, it feels like we're walking on shaky ground. Prices are stuck at really high levels, and it seems like nothing is affordable anymore. It's no wonder many are relying on credit cards to cover the gaps. Credit card debt is skyrocketing, and it's leaving a lot of people stressed out. If you're a homeowner, you don't have to face this uncertainty alone. My friends at American Financing can help you take control. They can help you access the debt in your home to help you pay down the high interest credit card debt, giving you peace of mind and real saving. On average, people just like you are saving $800 a month. That's $10,000 a year. Plus, they may close your loan in as little as 10 days. Don't let the chaos of the economy get the best of you. Call American Financing now. It costs you nothing to get started, and you might be able to delay 2 mortgage payments, putting some extra cushion in your bank account. Give them a call at 888-686-8030 or visit americanfinancing.net/Gardner. Again, that's 888-686-8030.
Thank you for that, because I caught it early this morning and I was going to report on it as well. So I'm glad you put that out there, because I think that's very significant, because as Americans, our prescription cost for drugs is astronomical. That's why a lot of Americans, they go to Cuba, they go to India, they go to all these other countries, China, and they try to store up a year or 2 years worth of drugs because it's so darn expensive in America. Just think about that. You're going to a foreign country, so you're paying for the ticket, the hotel, whatever the prescription costs for the drugs cost in that country, and you're buying a year's supply versus paying a monthly amount that's costing you $600 depending on whatever drug that you have. I mean, it's just,
yeah.
But we had to wait till President Donald Trump come into office to sign this very bold legislation that we've had Democrat president after Democrat president dating back all the way from Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, whoever it may be. And now we're finally getting some results, or at least the legislation to support changing these high costs in America. So again, I believe that's very significant.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. You have some further comments on it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, for many years, there's been this thing called medical tourism, where literally you could fly in to Canada, vacation for a week, get LASIK, eat like a king, and come home, and it would still be cheaper than LASIK in America. You've got people, they get on a plane, they go to Turkey, they vacation for a month in Turkey, they then get a hair transplant, and they come home, and it's still half the cost of getting a hair transplant in America.
How much is LASIK around the world? Do you know how much is LASIK?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, I'm just saying, I know my wife, she paid $4,500.
Yeah, I'm trying to get LASIK myself, and it was about $5,000 for the 2 eyes. But
wow,
we had some friends. We had some friends. They went over to Spain for a week, got LASIK, and came back, and they still spent less money. We've got another person that we know. They flew to New Zealand, got their knee fixed, got put up in a 5-star hotel, and came back, and it was still cheaper than getting a knee replacement in America.
Now, a lot of those countries, those last two you were naming, their currency is worth more than ours. Like, you know, you're trading for, you know, maybe it's an extra 30 or 40 cents on a dollar, depending on if it's, you know, the Swiss is the franc, because you said Switzerland. No, you said no, New Zealand. My apologies.
New Zealand, yep.
But a lot of those European countries' currencies are worth more than now. So if it costs less, I can only imagine how much it was in America.
Yeah, they just treat medical different. You know, and you can just fly in, and so, you know, a lot of the cost in America is big pharma. The other cost, it's not your doctor, it's hospital administrators. There's so much red tape and lawsuits and lawyers and all of that. All of that is behind seeing your doctor for 9 minutes so that your HMO can give you a prescription, right? I do private medicine personally. I don't do all of that, but I know that the vast majority of Americans, that's the system that they live in, and it ends up being very expensive. I'll give you an example. I called an MRI place. I said to them, I don't have insurance. I'm self-employed. They said, okay, that MRI is normally $5,000. We could do it for $500. 90% discount.
Wow.
90% discount.
So what about offsetting the cost of, you know, medical services altogether? They will charge the U.S. government. The U.S. government will charge, no insurance company will charge the U.S. government, let's say $5,000. And the U.S. government says, well, we're not going to pay the full $5,000 because we're going to have a copay to the patient. And the patient maybe has to pay what, I don't know, $1,500 or $250. So it's almost like they're double dipping the way they're getting their money.
Yeah.
And and here's the thing, we as American citizens are paying for that because where the government gets their money to pay the insurance company, taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, it's a scam and it's being revealed. And again, it took someone like President Donald Trump, because again, I'm not for or against President Donald Trump. I'm for Americans living a better life. Okay. The America First agenda, I'm all over it. I love it. I want America to win in any regards when it comes to living better, right? In a better structure of government and a better structure economy, you name it. But it's taking someone like President Trump, who, as you stated, you were saying how other Republicans, because I think, and I'm not stating you, Stephen, but some people who consider themselves MAGA, do they separate themselves somewhat from the Republican Party and say, you know, I'm just a MAGA conservative or a MAGA conservative Republican? How does that go?
So the MAGA movement, I would say they're about populism, right? They want a person who they believe and trust with a dream and a vision. They follow that person. Right now, it's Donald J. Trump. He's got to figure out going forward, is it going to be J.D. Vance? Is it going to be Byron Donalds? Is it going to be Tulsi Gabbard? The American people are going to have to figure that out. Trump will give a very strong endorsement, and that person will probably be the next person put forward, right? So, but the MAGA, they don't consider themselves Republicans anymore. So the war hawks, the rhinos, the being a part of a country club, It's the working class Americans coming together behind one person that they trust with a dream and a vision. It just happens to be Donald Trump right now. But that's what MAGA wants. They want what's best for America and the American people. How does fighting in Ukraine benefit the American people? It really doesn't, right? How does fighting in Vietnam help the American people? It didn't. I know there are times where Big Brother, the bigger military, the bigger dog, has to step in. But a war in Afghanistan for 20 years, trillions and trillions of dollars for what? For nothing. Literally nothing. We got nothing out of it. So anyway, so that's what I believe that this MAGA movement is. And I believe that MAGA is way more accepting of other Americans. So, for example, Republicans for a long time were wealthy white people. Now you see MAGA, it's got Asian people, it's got Black Americans, it's got Mexican Americans. They always said we're the big tent party, but then they had a small door, right? Now they're the big tent party with a big door, and they're gathering more and more people. But it's based on, do you want America to succeed? Do you want your family to succeed? Do you want to make good money? It's more economic, I would say, and nationalist than it is adhering to a party, right? So because we're probably more like the party of Abraham Lincoln than we were the party of George Bush. So anyway, those are just my thoughts.